Hey guys, welcome back to another impressions video on the latest game I beat, which is Shantae's Risk's Revenge. I played these on the PC via the Steam platform, and it's a game that I've been meaning to play for a long time on a series that I kind of dabble in the past, playing the original Shantae via emulation. I never managed to beat any of the games in the series, so I decided to get started with Risk's Revenge and move towards the newer titles. Reason being, the original Game Boy title, which was it was kind of like a interesting release. The original Shantae was kind of like a very late release in the Game Boy Color's life cycle. It had a very low print run, and it's now one of the most sought after Game Boy games for collectors. So and to boot, the game is actually pretty good. It's kind of like a Metroidvania that was published by Capcom, but developed by Way Forward. But yeah, I played that via emulation. I didn't put enough time to beat the game, but decided to start my Shantae, I guess, journey with Risky Revenge. It's more accessible. It's available on Steam, and it was on sale not too long ago. So that's why I decided to go with this one. And Risky's Revenge serves as a sequel to the original game. So I'm gonna start talking about the story. The storyline is very simple in this game, but I thought it was pretty adequate for the type of game that it is. Basically, your uncle finds this like magical lamp that it's stolen by none other than the antagonist of the series, Risky Boot. Your rival basically, and it's up to Shantae to find like three magic seals before Risky does, and recover the lamp. So the story is very simple, very, I guess, straightforward. It kind of goes hand in hand with the nature of the game. The game shoots to have like a simplistic, I guess, approach, and just have the player engage from the very beginning. So I thought the story is adequate for how the game it is. Regarding the graphics, this is an interesting take on I guess the game itself. Obviously, it's an improvement over the original one, where the Game Boy Color obviously had a lot of limitations. But I thought it was funny because this game also presented limitations. Risk's Revenge was originally released, I believe, in 2010 for the DSiWare service, for the Nintendo DS, which was kind of like the first version of the eShop, if you will, and back then Nintendo posed file size limitations to developers. So you can kind of see that affecting Risk's Revenge in a certain way. Even though the game has a really nice retro, colorful, and sprite work type of graphics, I think the game is a little bit limited in terms of the scope. There are several areas in the game that you can explore. You have like a forest area, desert area, some temples, caves, dungeons. So there's variety, but I felt like the game was limited in terms of the graphics. But again, the graphics are adequate because they do convey that retro style that we all love. Retro-inspired graphics, but at the same time, I felt kind of like the game could have been a little bit more, I guess, ambitious in its graphics. But nevertheless, I thought the game was very pleasing. I guess one minor negative is that even though I played the director's cut version, which is an upgraded version of the original Risk's Revenge. In fact, this game was released, I believe, in 2015 on Steam, or 2014, I think. The game still has certain limitations instead of the aspect ratio, and there were not many or great improvements in terms of the upping the quality of the graphics. But nevertheless, the game looks great, and it serves its purpose of being a retro-inspired Metroidvania, if you will. Moving on to the soundtrack, I'm not gonna spend a whole lot of time on this because I really enjoyed the soundtrack. I thought it was a pretty great soundtrack. Very nicely themed, songs, very adequate for the types of areas that you're exploring in the game. Again, no complaints on the soundtrack department for this game. I really enjoyed it. In terms of the gameplay, that's where the meat and potatoes of the game lies, because again, the story is very simple. The graphics are retro inspired. Soundtrack is pretty good. And the gameplay is where this game shines. Being a Metroidvania type of game, obviously, you do find yourself revisiting older sections of the game, older areas, and every time you have a new item or a new ability. The game doesn't hold your hand that much, but at the same time, it's not very hard. So even if you get stuck, typically it's just a matter of exploring areas that you haven't been to or talking to NPCs and so forth. So the game is not hand-holdy at all, but at the same time, it's not terribly hard to figure out what's going on. Except kind of like in some of the temple or I guess dungeons areas in the game, sometimes some of the dungeons that had a lot of doors and stuff were a little bit confusing, and there were a couple of puzzles that really kind of confused me for a while in one of the later dungeons, but nothing too hard, nothing too crazy. And in terms of the combat in the game, you have the classic Shantae kind of like platforming elements combining with attacking using your hair, which you can upgrade that, which is pretty cool. And you can also attack using items that you can buy at the market in town. So you can use items like an electric cloud, or you can shoot fire, or you can have like these orbs that surround you that are very useful, especially for later parts in the game. And for this one area that I really liked, which is kind of like this challenge tower that at one point in the game you have to kind of like beat the several levels. I think like 15 to 20 levels in this tower. It's kind of like a challenge room on each level of the tower, and you have to beat it within a time frame or time limit. And that's where these items that you can upgrade help you a lot, in attacking and completing the enemies. So as far as the platforming itself, the controls are very good. I found myself making some tough jumps, and I thought the controls were very helpful in the sense that you can have Shantae like float up in the air, and you can still redirect her pretty nicely. So that gives you that extra amount of precision when you're in a tight spot. Another cool element that I believe makes a comeback versus the original game is that you can have the animal, I guess, transformations. You can gain abilities to play as a monkey, and when you do that, you can kind of like stick to the walls, jump higher, and crawl through like smaller spaces. You can also play as an elephant, which allows you to like plow through like rock walls, and you can ground pound and attack enemies that way. And finally, you can unlock a mermaid ability, which allows you to like swim in the game and attack enemies underwater. So it's pretty cool. Obviously there are puzzles that are related to that, or there are areas that are only accessible by using these animal transformations. So that's kind of like the fun of the game, really figuring it out how what abilities to use in order to progress through the game. So overall, the game, I can't say it's terribly hard. There are some old school elements in there, like I was mentioning, the game is not very hand-holdy, but at the same time, it's not terribly like difficult. The game itself takes, I want to say, between 5 to 6 hours. I think that's the average that I saw online. But for me personally, it took me more than that. I want to say it took me around 8 hours, 8 to 9 hours maybe, because I was trying to be as thorough as possible. It's very important in this game, or it's not important, but I was enjoying, the exploration. But it pays off in the sense that, if you explore the areas, you can upgrade your health in this game. You can improve your attacks and whatnot, and you can get currency to upgrade your items and things like that in the game. So I did not find every single secret area in the game and every secret jam, I guess that's what they call it in the game. but I believe I found most of them, so that was pretty cool. And I believe the game has like 3 or 4 endings, if I'm not mistaken. I obviously got the regular ending, but if you beat the game, getting every single item, then you get another ending, and then there's another ending for a kind of like a speed run. Yeah, the game does encourage, I guess, in a way to replay it, but I was content enough after beating the game once. There's also, you unlock a new like magical mode, which is kind of like a new game plus, in which you can use magic. But Shantae takes extra damage, so it's almost like a challenging version of the regular game. And on top of that, this being the director's cut, I think one element that is being introduced here that, in my opinion, is very valuable is the fact that you can warp or fast travel within the map of the game. I believe the original DSiWare game did not have this function, which is, to me, that's insane, because I found myself using the fast travel quite a bit, and I can't imagine playing this game like that. Like if I would have played the original version, I think I would have been very frustrated because the backtracking would have been just ridiculous. So I believe that's one of the main benefits of the director's cut, the fact that you can fast travel. And the game also, you have to be careful with the saving. You can only save at certain locations in the game. But thankfully there are a few of them, and they're fairly well spread out throughout the world map, which is kind of cool. And finally, I guess one minor complaint was the world map itself. In my opinion, was not very detailed, or kind of like hard to read in a way. I was hoping it would have been a little bit better. Metroidvania types of games are always easier and more enjoyable if the maps are good. And I think the map in the game was not that great, in my opinion. But overall, it was a very fun Metroidvania game. I wouldn't put it up there with among my favorites. However, I am very much looking forward delving a little bit deeper into the Shantae series. I definitely have the rest of the games on my wish list on Steam, so I will pick them up on the next sale. And I believe I think I own one of them on the 3DS. I believe I bought, I think it was the next game in the series, so I may play that on my 3DS. But other than that, looking forward to playing the other titles in the future. And looking forward to what Way Forward, no pun intended, has in store. I believe they released the latest title not too long ago, The Siren's Curse, I believe it's called. So the series is alive and well, and there's a reason why fans, there's a cult following for this series. It's a very fun and charming Metroidvania type of game that, in my opinion, it should be looked into if you guys haven't explored it yet. Other than that, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all later. Take it easy.